So good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the 25th Dr. Charles Perkins AO Memorial Oration. My name is Ruben Bolt, and I'm the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Indigenous Strategy and Services here at the University of Sydney. Before we start, I would like to welcome Uncle Charles Madden to the stage to perform the Welcome to Country.
Good evening, folks. My name is Charles Madden, but known around the inner city of Sydney as Chicka. Now, that's a nickname that I got many, many years ago going to Redfern Public School, which is now NCIE, the National Centre of Indigenous Excellence. Folks, I'm from Gadigal land. Aboriginal land, that's the land we're on at the moment. For many, many years, I've lived and worked around the city of Sydney. I've been involved with quite a few Aboriginal organisations over the years. I've been a director with the Aboriginal Medical Service at Redfern for over 40 years. Also a director with the Redfern Aboriginal Housing Company, Aboriginal Hostels Australia, and the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council. I've got to mention it, folks. Also, a life member of the Redfern All Blacks Rugby League Football Club. Thank you. Folks, for many, many years I've lived and worked around the city of Sydney. I'd like to take this opportunity this evening to extend a warm and sincere welcome to all of my Aboriginal brothers and sisters, non-Aboriginal brothers and sisters. If we have any brothers and sisters here from the Torres Strait or further afar across the seas, welcome. Welcome to Gadigal land. The Gadigal clan is one of 29 that makes up the Eora Nation. The Eora Nation is bordered by 3 distinctive landmarks. We have the Hawkesbury River to the north, the Peen to the west, and the Georges River to the south. Those 3 rivers form the boundaries of the Eora Nation. Folks, if you've travelled across this great city of ours today, the state of this great country, all from afar, welcome. Welcome to Gadigal land. Enjoy your stay. Have a safe and trouble-free trip home. Once again, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Enjoy the evening, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Chicka, for your warm and moving welcome. Tonight we have a very special co-host, Madeline Madden, who is the daughter of Hetty Perkins and granddaughter of Dr. Perkins. It's a special honour to have Madeline here this evening, and it's a wonderful connection to her grandfather as we honour him tonight. Thank you for joining me, Madeline.
Thank you, and thank you, Pop, for that welcome. This time of year always brings moments of reflection of who my grandfather was and how his work and legacy still impacts us today. Over the weekend, I was in Adelaide, and whilst I was preparing to be here speaking before you today, I reflected on the formative time my grandfather spent there and the difficult decision my great-grandmother, Nana Hetty, made to send Pop to Adelaide from Alice Springs to get an education when he was just a boy. I have a visceral image of a little boy getting off the train on his own in a strange big town with nothing but a suitcase. I recall hearing how in the holidays, when all the kids would go home to their families, Pop would remain at school, unable to return back home to Mparntwe. I can't imagine what that would have felt like as a child, but also as a mother, the sacrifice that Nana Hetty had to make in the hopes of her child forging a better life for himself, even if that meant having to send him away. In Adelaide, he went on to get an education, which would bring him to Sydney Uni, he found his love of soccer and the realisation that the sporting field had the ability to unite people under one team, regardless of what you looked like. And most importantly, I'd argue, where he met our grandmother, Eileen, who weathered all the storms and has been the cornerstone of our family. So when I think of my grandfather's legacy, it's not just his achievements that I remember, it's the great sacrifice and quiet strength that made that happen. The resilience and courage of Nana Hetty and our ancestors before her, and the deep sense of purpose that drove Pop to devote his life to better the lives of other Aboriginal people. Pop's life reminds me that legacy isn't built on success alone, but on perseverance, love, and the willingness to endure hardship for something greater than oneself. Thank you, Dr. Burnett.
I would now like to invite our Vice-Chancellor and President of the University of Sydney to the stage, Professor Mark Scott.
Well, thank you, Ruben, and thank you, Madeline, for that wonderful, gracious remembrance and insightful start to our evening. And thanks also to Uncle Chicka for the welcome to country, and I also want to acknowledge country. This university, the University of Sydney, has stood on Gadigal land for 175 years, nearly 2 centuries now. But this has been a place of learning and discovering and sharing of knowledge for 600 centuries. And we acknowledge traditional owners and pay our respects to elders past and present. It's wonderful to be able to be here tonight to gather on a special event to mark the 25th anniversary of the Dr. Charles Perkins AO Memorial Oration, honouring a great pioneer who embodies what we talk about here at the University of Sydney a lot: leadership for good. I want to acknowledge and warmly welcome Eileen Perkins and members of the Perkins family who are with us here tonight, and we're deeply grateful to have you join us at this special occasion, because this oration is one of the most important annual events, a moment of truth, a moment of insight, a moment of reflection and discovery that we have here at the university every year. As well as the first Aboriginal man to graduate from the University of Sydney, Charles Perkins was one of Australia's most important leaders for justice and equality. We talk about Charles Perkins a lot here at Sydney. One of our most famous buildings and research centres is named after him, the Charles Perkins Centre. But often as we reflect with pride, we need to remember as well that it took more than a century for this university to graduate its first Aboriginal person from the university. And so we commit ourselves in this generation to be opening doors of opportunity to new generations of young Aboriginal people who can come and learn and study and develop their own skills for leadership for good here and go out and make an impact on the world. We're excited that our One Sydney Many People strategy here at the university now sees more Aboriginal students than at any time in our history enrolled to study here at the University of Sydney, with more Aboriginal staff working at the university than at any time in our history. And we're pleased that you're able to meet tonight Ruben Bolt, our new Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Indigenous Strategy and Services. This oration connects us with the past, connects us to the present and the future, and we've reflected on that a lot in this, our milestone year of 175th anniversary. Earlier this year, I was delighted to host a morning tea to mark the 60th anniversary of the Freedom Ride, a pivotal moment in Australian history led by Charles Perkins and other students from the University of Sydney. And there at that gathering, we announced a new scholarship initiative that honours the legacy of the 1965 student-led civil rights campaign. It was wonderful gathering them together here at the university, hearing their stories, and they were all looking great. The passion and brilliance remains strong in today's generation of students. And so we're pleased tonight to honour the highest achieving Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander undergraduate, and postgraduate students at the university with the Dr. Charles Perkins AO Memorial Prize. They are the next generation of leaders carrying forward Charles Perkins' vision. And tonight, we want to acknowledge and thank our orator, Ngari Murray, a person who's shown extraordinary leadership as co-chair of Victoria's First Peoples Assembly in advancing a model of accountability, truth-telling and structural treaty-making, an exemplar of how Indigenous leadership is driving real reform. The Victorian treaty legislation making its way through the Parliament tonight is making Victoria the first state to table treaty legislation in Australia, and it's an important national moment, a sign that institutional change is possible when First Peoples are empowered and part of the decision-making. And this is a reminder of why the Charles Perkins oration remains vital and current, because it spotlights leadership, it pushes institutions like this institution to think symbolically and structurally about justice, and it ensures that commitments aren't just symbolic, but underpinned by real mechanisms driving profound change. So thank you, Ngari Murray, for being here to share your leadership and vision with us in the oration tonight. I'm proud of those in our community who keep the legacy of Charles Perkins alive, and that includes those who make events like tonight happen, and my sincere thanks to you all. Our Sydney 2032 vision is visionary. We want to cement our place as Sydney's university, catering to the broader Sydney region whilst being a great global university. And in setting this vision, we recognise our obligations to the First Nations people of this land to honour more than 60,000 years of knowledge creation, to support the development of knowledge in years to come, and to ensure that this place is accessible to all, building leadership for good. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor, for your remarks, and a big thank you for your support for this very important, significant event on our calendar. Did you know, Madeline, that I have a personal connection to this oration, and my family has a close connection to Dr. Perkins himself? In 2001, I completed my first degree here at the university, a Bachelor of Health Science, Aboriginal Health and Community Development with honours at the Cumberland campus. And later that year, I was nominated for the very first Dr. Charles Perkins Oration Prize. So it's so great to be here this evening as a co-host. And my mother's brother, the late Bobby McLeod, knew Dr. Perkins well. He knew him well enough to arrest several DAA officers at gunpoint in protest of the intentions to sack Dr. Perkins at that time. And as history would tell us, Dr. Perkins would arrive soon after to talk my Uncle Bobby down and convince him to hand over the weapon. You know, I spent a lot of time with my Uncle Bobby during my younger years, particularly after he gave up drinking and started to focus on his own self-healing. And that was when he established the Dunwich Self-Healing Centre and the Dunwich Dance Company. And I am absolutely in awe and amazed by the ways in which our old people had the tenacity and the resilience to fight for what they believed in. The experience of colonisation and the negative discrimination throughout history, yet the will and the resolve to fight for what was right and for what was just. We absolutely do stand on the shoulders of giants, and I am consistently amazed how that resistance against the colonial was such a prominent and defining feature of the discourse at that time, and how it played a critical role in the formation of the basis of the logic that informed my worldview. So there is no question that we are now in a very fortunate position as a result of their work and their advocacy. And now we have the benefit of hindsight to be able to pick and choose how we strategically engage the system and the discourse so that we can assert our positions for good, for leadership, to improve outcomes in our communities on the terms that we choose. I think about this often. the leadership that has come before us. We must be appreciative and grateful, and we must show our gratitude. A huge thank you to Dr. Perkins for his life's work. Tonight, we not only acknowledge this legacy, but we honour and celebrate this legacy in our annual Dr. Charles Perkins Oration. Over to you, Madeline, to introduce the Dr. Charles Perkins Memorial Prize.
Thank you. Each year, we have the honour of awarding the Charles Perkins Memorial Prize, which recognises academic achievement amongst our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. The recipients of the 2025 Charles Perkins Memorial Prize are Molly Blackburn, Bachelor of Arts, Honours. Holly Doyle, Bachelor of Applied Science, Physiotherapy. Stephanie Howes, Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Laws. And if we can just bring all the recipients just back to the stage so we could please get a group photo.
I would like to take a moment to extend our warmest congratulations to the recipients of the Charles Perkins Memorial Prize. We commend you, we commend your dedication, your hard work, and your unwavering commitment to excellence.
Before we get to the oration, we have a special musical performance for you. Please welcome to the stage the beloved singer-songwriter and Aranda and Gurindji man, Dan Sultan.
My mother told me when I was very young that Uncle Charlie was my uncle and we were related. And I grew up telling people that I was related to Charlie Pride, who's an American singer-songwriter. But I'm very proud to maybe be related to Charlie. And I'm proud to be here, and it's wonderful to be a part of a community that likes to make things better. Well, I walked in here off the dirty mile. I swaggered in with a prison style, with aching bones and dirty feet, in need of a bed and something sweet. Now I played for you and I played it right. I sung in tune and I danced all night. That you as the only one. I didn't know that it'd come undone. Oh, now well, I hit the road when I was 15. Oh, now when my mother died and my daddy got me, I've been locked up since 21, and I was my mother's only son. I've forgotten most of the early days, but I remember what she used to say. She said, little boy, you're my pride and joy. You're the only good thing about old Fitzroy. Oh, now I can feel the walls falling down around me. And it makes me love that old town somehow. And I've been drinking all the wrong things all night, thinking about what I gotta do to survive this life. Ooh, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that special performance, Dan. This year we have the honour of the oration being delivered by Ngara Murray. Ngara is the elected co-chair of the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria. She lives and works on Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung country, representing Aboriginal communities in the metropolitan region. As co-chair, Ngara is a key spokesperson for the Assembly, committed to amplifying community voices and supporting the path to treaties in Victoria. She's passionate about sovereignty, community mobilisation and nation building. Can I now introduce to you Wamba Wamba Yorta Yorta, Dadaroa and Jaja Wurrung woman, Ngara Murray.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. First Peoples have been caring for country for at least tens of thousands of years. Pre-colonisation, Australia was home to more than 250 distinct Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander language groups and over 800 dialects spoken across the land. Each language carried the stories, laws, songs and knowledge systems that connected people to country. Being part of the oldest continuous living culture on this planet is to walk in the footsteps of our old people whose knowledge, stories and spirit stretch back more than 65,000 years. It is to carry a history so vast that it predates the pyramids. It is to hold the wisdom of this land and the law that has been passed down from generation to generation. The enormity of this truth is humbling and powerful. It means we have unbroken bloodlines, our people are guardians of the world's most ancient stories, and the keepers of a legacy that continues to guide our future. Connection to country is as profound as it is unique. Our cultural practices are founded on and embedded within a worldview in which people and country are one. The land now known as Australia was not discovered by the British Crown or founded by settlers. The sovereignty of First Peoples has never been ceded and continues to exist. So this evening, I acknowledge the Gadigal lands and the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and their sacred and unceded sovereign lands that we gather on. I pay respect to the warriors of the frontier wars and resistance fighters. I honour elders, past and present, and the generations yet to come who carry the strength of their ancestors in their spirit. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Thank you, Uncle Charles Madden, for your welcome to country. It is always a privilege to witness the cultural ceremonies and the practices of our people, so thank you very much. And thank you to Dan Sultan for your beautiful song. I always feel so emotional when I hear that old Fitzroy song and the connection that we have to Fitzroy down in Melbourne. So thank you, Dan Sultan. It is a privilege to share in this important moment, and I want to sincerely thank the Dr. Charles Perkins family, Auntie Eileen Perkins here tonight, and to Rachel for generously inviting me on behalf of her family to give this oration, and to Hetty, Adam and Madeline and all the family members. Thank you for the invitation and opportunity to speak with you all this evening. It is a huge honour and something I hold with deep gratitude and pride. Thank you, Professor Ruben Bolt, for the introduction. There's a memory that has always stayed with me, and it was when Dr. Charles Perkins AO came down to the Moama Local Aboriginal Land Council to speak with our people in the 1980s. And as kids, we were in awe listening to him speak, and we knew he was an important man as he wore a suit. As black kids in this country, we were often brought into rooms many our age never see. Meetings, community gatherings, demonstrations and political spaces where decisions about our lives are made. We grew up listening to the language of change, strategy and struggle, learning early what it means to carry responsibility. We witnessed the weight our parents and elders hold, and we quietly absorbed the lessons, how to speak up, when to stand firm, and why our voice matters. These experiences shape us into leaders before we even realise it, grounding us in a legacy. For me, in the 80s, that was a moment listening to Dr. Perkins that day, and it left an impression on me. Dr. Perkins had many interactions with my family over decades through his strong relations with my grandfathers, Pastor Sir Doug Nichols and Stuart Murray, and my father, Gary Murray, and through the various meetings, conventions, campaigns and events they attended together, and their work through the Federal Council for the Advancement of Aborigines and Torres Strait Islanders, FCATSI, National Tribal Council, National Aboriginal Sports Foundation, and the National Aboriginal Football Carnivals. So I feel very fortunate to stand before you today and to pay tribute to Dr. Charles Perkins AO. Originally, I was to deliver this oration with the other co-chair of the First Peoples Assembly, Ruben Berg. While we were both very excited to deliver this together, there was one small obstacle in the way, which is the statewide treaty bill currently being debated tonight in the upper house of the Victorian Parliament, which means it's very close to parliamentary passage. We thought perhaps one of us should be back in Melbourne holding down the fort when Australia's first treaty passes the Parliament, and Ruben is right now in Melbourne, in Spring Street in the Parliament, and I want to acknowledge him and his work ethic, and he's an amazing person to share this leadership role with on behalf of the Assembly. I'd also like to acknowledge the University of Sydney Vice-Chancellor and President, Professor Mark Scott, AO, and Professor Anna Marie Jargos, Senior Deputy Vice-Chancellor and Provost, and congratulations to the recipients of the Dr. Charles Perkins AO Memorial Prize. So my name is Ngara Murray, and I'm a proud Yorta Yorta, Wamba Wamba, Jaja Warang Dudura woman. I grew up on Yorta Yorta country as a little black girl down the south end of Shepparton. My totems are the Biggarumja, the emu, and Murrin, the black cockatoo. My identity in who I am cannot be confined to one place alone, as my family has strong bloodlines to multiple countries and clans, which means carrying the strength of many lands and ancestors and the spirit of my kin. Our Nichols and Murray family connection makes us culturally strong and deeply grounded in truth that our story belongs to more than one place, and all these places, they belong within me. We carry that right and cultural responsibility, as this is granted through inherited roles within our families, through earning the right by respectful behaviour and cultural responsibility. My family has been involved in the fight for rights and justice in this country over 7 generations, and that fight continues today through me. We've been vocal about the impacts and the conditions of our people for a very long time, and our active participation in the fight for rights and land rights movements includes the 1881 Maloga Petition, the 1886 Coranderrk Deputation to the Victorian Parliament, the 1938 Day of Mourning here in Sydney, the 1939 Cummeragunja Walk-Off, the 1963 Aborigines Advancement League Petition to the United Nations, the 1965 Lake Tyers protest, and my grandfather Stuart Murray's fight for his land through the Soldier Settlement Scheme, along with his 1988 letter to the Premier of Victoria calling for compensation and treaty, and the numerous land rights protests across Victoria. I am co-chair of the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria, the independent democratically elected body representing traditional owners of country and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Victoria on our journey to treaty. The Assembly is made up of 33 elected members representing 5 regions and many tribes and communities across Victoria. And I represent the people of Naarm, so the people in Melbourne. The Assembly stands as a powerful expression of Aboriginal democracy, a place where our voices are united, our rights are asserted, and our future is shaped by us. Our story began long before we were all born, when our ancestors walked this land and our law was law. Our story is of extraordinary strength and survival, a testament to an invincible spirit that has withstood the tests of time. Our people are deeply connected to the land through stories, languages, songlines, and systems of relational sovereignty that have guided our way of life for thousands of generations. These stories are not just told, they live within country, carrying knowledge of creation, law, and belonging that bind people to place and to one another. Relational sovereignty reflects the understanding that every being in our cosmos, the people, the land, sky, stars, waters, animals, birds, plants, is part of an interconnected web of responsibility and respect. Across the continent, this shared foundation of story and songlines forms a living network that unites Aboriginal nations, reminding us that sovereignty is not just political, but spiritual and cultural, held through care, kinship, and connection to our lands and waters. First Peoples hold powerful and enduring relationships with one another that reach far beyond colonial borders, connecting communities across the entire country. These relationships are built on kinship systems, cultural responsibilities, and shared histories that have maintained peace and trade and alliance. These connections remind us that no nation stands alone. Each is a part of a larger network of belonging grounded in respect, reciprocity, and care. Today, our sense of unity is strong, whether through shared struggles for rights or challenges, through our sporting carnivals, our ceremonies, the movement of voice treaty truth, or the continued practice of culture. Aboriginal people continue to uphold the deep ties that bind us together as one across all countries. Victoria as a state and Australia as a nation are on the edge of history. For over 2 centuries, the First Peoples of this land have stood in defiance of invasion, dispossession, and denial. We have survived policies designed to erase us, institutions built to exclude us, and a nation that for too long looked away from our truth. But now something extraordinary is happening. We are standing on the threshold of a new era, the treaty era. For the very first time in this country's history, a state is preparing to enter a treaty with First Peoples. This is not a small step. It is a rupture in the national story, a shift in power, a promise that tomorrow can be different from yesterday. Progress and justice are not linear progressions, they are moments in history when people take action. A healthy society must include those who identify its flaws and strive to fix them. The people best placed to identify those issues are those that are affected by them. Treaty is based on a simple principle. Treaty recognises that Aboriginal people are the experts when it comes to our countries, our cultures, and our communities. Treaties are about practical change that improves the livelihoods of our people and strengthens the health, well-being, and prosperity of our communities. Treaty at its heart is about new relationships, about two parties coming together. It's the beginning of something new, a middle space. It is coexistence where we begin to shape a better future together, one that recognises and respects the First Peoples of this land. When I reflect on the long road that has brought us here to the edge of a treaty, I think of leaders who walked before us, leaders who stood in the face of injustice and chose hope, leaders like Dr. Perkins. Dr. Perkins spoke truth without fear. He carried a fire within him, a belief that our people deserve dignity, equality, and self-determination. Aboriginal affairs to be run by Aboriginal people. He dedicated his life to breaking down the barriers of racism and inequality that held our people back. Dr. Perkins' legacy continues to remind us that real change begins when we refuse to accept injustice as normal. When I think of leaders like Dr. Perkins, or even my own great-grandfather, Pastor Sir Doug Nicholls, I think of the bridges they built between black and white, between government and community, between the pain of the past and the hope of the future. They did not live to see a treaty, but they laid the foundation for it. Their vision lives in all of us. It lives in the work we carry, in the truth-telling, in every conversation about the assertion of our rights and justice for our people. As we walk towards treaty, we walk in their footsteps. We carry their spirit, one that refuses to give up, one that continues to rise. And we owe it to them, to our ancestors, to our elders, to Dr. Perkins, and to every generation that fought before us to finish what they began. Because the work they started was never just about protest or policy, it was about dignity and unity and truth. And today, as the dream of treaty becomes a reality, I know they are watching with pride, seeing their vision come to life through us, through our families and our communities. Treaty has not been an easy journey. It has taken courage, sacrifice, and tireless work from leaders and communities across our countries. Treaty is here because of the resilience of our people who never gave up. It is here because so many Australians, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal alike, know that our democracy is made stronger when justice walks alongside it. We have a chance to do something remarkable, to set aside politics and to choose courage. Treaty is a commitment to truth, to fairness and to a shared future. It is how we begin to reset the relationship between black and white. For over 250 years, the absences of treaties have been the wound at the heart of this nation. While Aotearoa forged the Treaty of Waitangi in 1840, while Canada entered into numbered treaties, while the United States struck treaty after treaty with First Nations, Australia chose another path. Our land was declared terra nullius, empty. Our people declared invisible. Our laws, our sovereignties, our voices denied. The initial occupation of the land by European settlers from 1788 onwards was illegal, rapid, and largely uncontrolled. The taking of country and resources was violent as First Peoples were displaced and massacred by settlers in pursuit of our lands and waters. Our ancestors, as children, saw many of their people die. Some were killed in cruel reprisals when they tried to keep their territory. Some were shot down in the blackfellow hunt, no different to the kangaroo hunt, simply to clear the land. Some were given presents of poison flower. Some died from the white man's diseases, some from his alcohol. When colonisers arrived, many First Peoples were killed. Those who survived were forced to move to reserves and missions. The history of dispossession in this country is long. Our dispossession was affected by the colonisers through a systemic campaign of intentional violence. the First Peoples estate in Australia has been decimated by colonisation and deliberate government action from 1788 up to the present day. These actions include the sale, leasing and licensing of Crown land, pastoralism and farming, destructions of our sacred sites, extraction of gold and minerals, fragmented ecosystems with devastating consequences. Laws and policies of the British and colonial governments were used to authorise confiscation, theft, use and damage of lands and waters belonging to First Peoples without their consent. The Protection Acts and other related colonial laws and policies deliberately disrupted First Peoples' connections with their traditional lands and waters and each other. By today's standards, a number of these actions would amount to genocidal acts. The colonisers exploited country for the highest short-term economic benefit. That approach to land management pushed the land to the brink of ruin. In adopting such an approach, the colonisers actively shunned our generations of knowledge and practices, and our people felt the full force of colonisation and dispossession, and this still impacts us today. In a single generation, our people went from custodians and effective land managers to slave labourers, caught up in a self-perpetuating system of stolen wealth. Just as the impacts of First Peoples' dispossession continues today, so do the benefits that colonisers gained from exploiting our lands. The Yurok Justice Commission in Victoria heard thousands of these truths in their truth-telling inquiry. Their final report, Truth Be Told, is publicly available, and I urge everyone to read it and consider it. Yurok was the first truth-telling commission in Australia, but it will not be the last. Through treaty, we will ensure ongoing truth-telling is undertaken and to make sure that truths are told and learned in school curriculum and in the broader community, so our future generations know the history of this land, whole and honest. This is to create a future where everyone understands our national story and reckons with the past. Truth and treaty are shared journeys, ones where everyone can come to the table. We wish to continue that legacy of bringing everyone together. We also know what is possible in Victoria is possible in every jurisdiction in this country and on the national level. While we forge ahead in Victoria into a new era, we always consider our people across state and territory boundaries who are doing things their own way, on their own terms, at their own pace, and facing different circumstances. Healing can take a long time, but it is a necessary process across all of these lands. Treaty addresses the past, but it is ultimately about our future. And while we look to build a better future for many generations, we know it requires building capacity, and crucial to that is leadership. It is no secret that Aboriginal people place a great deal of emphasis on our elders and our leaders, and we only need to refer to the namesake of this oration, Dr. Perkins, a leader recognised nationally and internationally, and somewhere in the long list of his accolades, he was one of the very first Aboriginal people to graduate from this university, as we all know. And education is at the forefront of driving lasting change. I'm very proud to say that through treaty, we will establish a First Peoples Institute to foster and assist future leaders, drawing on the knowledge of our extensive history and legacy. It's safeguarding some of the oldest knowledges on earth and using that for nation-building work that benefits all of society, that benefits our country and communities, and situates them in positions of strength for our families and our kids and their kids and their kids, and so on. Despite the disruption to our country and everything that has happened to us, we remain strong. We are still here. We have survived. Our culture has evolved, and we are continually adapting. First Peoples have demonstrated remarkable resilience in maintaining their identity, connection to country and one another. There is an unbroken line between past atrocities, government actions and the experiences of First Peoples today, but our elders never stopped calling for justice. From the early petitions, from the missions of the 19th century to the 1938 Day of Mourning, to the bark petitions at Yirrkala, to the 1965 Freedom Ride, to the 1967 referendum, to the call for a treaty led by the National Aboriginal Conference in the 1970s and 80s, to the Voice referendum in 2023, our people have never given up. Every march, every protest, every demonstration, every songline of resistance has carried us to this moment. The movement over decades continued to grow in community halls, in homes, in churches, in sporting stadiums, in universities, and on the streets, drawing attention to the appalling living conditions and overt racism experienced by our people, to challenging discriminatory practices and exposing the segregation in country towns. It was our people fighting for their human rights. It was our people who built the first Aboriginal organisations in health, in housing, legal services, women's services and childcare, long before governments would. We organised ourselves for ourselves. The road to treaty has been long. It has consisted of many, many robust conversations with thousands of mobs from every corner of Victoria. No one on the Assembly will tell you that treaty is simple or easy, but big issues require hard work. In all those yarns, we know a consistent thread has been that this is the right cause of action for a just future for our people. We often say we stand on the shoulders of giants. Well, we do. We have had so many leaders who led with both heart and fire, trailblazers like Dr. Perkins. Without them, we would be nowhere close to treaty. Officially, we have been on the path to treaty since 2016, nearly a decade ago, but treaty is not new, nor are we leading the way in the international context. In 1788, the year the white man arrived right here on the shores of Sydney, but not many know that 10 years before that, in 1778, the Delaware Treaty with First Peoples was signed in the United States. 10 years before Victoria was settled in 1840, one of our closest neighbours in Aotearoa signed the Treaty of Waitangi. As recently as 2023, the White-capped Dakota signed a treaty in Canada. They are not new, and there are hundreds like them. Australia doesn't lack a treaty by accident or because Australia predates the concept. It certainly wasn't because of lack of willingness from First Peoples. It was by decision. This country, not our people, but the people who came here, chose not to do treaty, and our people paid the price. Treaty is about correcting that injustice, pulling ourselves up as a nation to be in line with the international standard, to follow best practice. It's justice for our people. Since the day white man arrived until today, we have fought long and hard for it. 1824, not far from here, Wiradjuri warrior and leader Windradyne came to Sydney to meet Governor Brisbane following the Bathurst War. He walked to Parramatta wearing a hat that simply had the word peace written on it. In 1863, Wurundjeri men William Barak and Simon Wonga walked with a deputation from Corranderk to Melbourne to meet Governor Barclay. They called for a permanent homeland for their people. It was the first of many delegations that the Kulin people sent from Corranderk. 1938, the day of mourning, the work of the Australian Aborigines League and the Aborigines Progressive Association, they called for the emancipation of Aboriginal people, full citizenship rights for their people, and the abolishment of discriminatory legislation. They wanted Aboriginal people to form the policies that relate to the betterment of their people. In 1963, Yolngu people of Eastern Arnhem Land crafted the Yirrkala bark petitions. The local clans of the area stated that their land, used for hunting and gathering by the Yolngu for time immemorial, was being leased, sold and pillaged without their consent. They called for agreement making with the people of Yirrkala. I learned about the Freedom Ride in 1965, led by Dr. Perkins, visiting towns like Moree and Kempsey and Walgett. It demonstrated the immense power of action and what is achieved when people collectively stand up against what we know is wrong. Yet we also know that whatever we do as a people, it is met with opposition. We still face the same ill-founded rhetoric today like back then when we talk about treaty. That somehow an agreement between two peoples who have long been divided by targeted discriminatory laws and policies is divisive. As my co-chair Ruben Berg stated in the Victorian Parliament 2 weeks ago, treaty is not to divide Victoria, but to complete it. In 1988, we saw the Barunga Statement. Aboriginal people called for self-determination, permission to be sought for their lands to be used, and protections of their cultural knowledge and ancestral sites. They called for treaty, which Bob Hawke committed to. a promise that wasn't kept. Yet when we move to address all of this, to do things a new way, to ensure this past is never repeated, some still have the short-sightedness to call it divisive without proposing a viable alternative. The fact is, this country has gone about business with First Peoples with devastating effect for centuries. These are, of course, some well-known examples of our people calling for agreement making and land rights, but it is only the surface. Consider all the conversations had, never recorded or written, that happened in churches, school halls, on missions and reserves, on stations and by the riverbanks. Conversations that were about the need for treaties in this land. They would be immeasurable, but each as important as the last. Treaty is the way forward, and we've been ensuring it's at its strongest for many years now. Australia is a prosperous nation, but let's be honest, that prosperity has not been shared equally. The foundations of modern Australia were built on land taken without consent, on the dispossession and marginalisation of First Peoples. That truth is uncomfortable for some, but it is a truth we must face. And yet, in the face of this history, our cultures have endured. Our languages are being spoken again, our art, our music, our knowledge systems are being celebrated worldwide. First Peoples are leading the way in all different forms, in environmental management, in building community resilience, in innovating to survive and thrive. We are not just the survivors of history, we are the architects of the future. We stand on the cusp of the very first treaty of this country. It is a turning point in the life of this nation. Treaty in Victoria is a bold and necessary step, one that recognises the sovereignty of First Peoples and charts a new future where truth, justice and prosperity walk side by side. Treaty creates a new middle space where the unfinished business between the Crown and First Peoples relations can be addressed, and where communities can shape agreements that honour First Peoples' culture, inherent rights and shared futures. This treaty in Victoria will be the first of many. And treaty will be about new relationships grounded in truth and respect. It is our chance to right the wrongs of the past and create a better future together. Treaty will be transformational, transforming relationships, systems, institutions and futures. It will be a catalyst for lasting, meaningful change that benefits all. Our emerging priorities and aspirations for statewide treaty are grounded in the voices, knowledge and input of the Victorian Aboriginal community over many years. Ultimately, treaty is about restoration and justice, restoration of First Peoples' inherent rights to country, justice for the harm done to us by colonisation. In Victoria, we have been on a long and steady path to truth and treaty for nearly 10 years. We have passed legislation twice, the Advancing the Treaty Process with Aboriginal Victorians Act and the Treaty Authority and Other Elements Act. We have developed policies and made commitments across the parties, and this week we will see the statewide treaty bill pass the parliamentary process to become law. We have taken the time required to lay strong foundations for treaty. For 9 months, we walked through the intensity of history in the making with the very first treaty negotiations. They were demanding, at times exhausting, but always deeply significant. Each conversation has carried with it not just policy or politics, but the weight of the generation who dreamed of this moment and the responsibility to honour those yet to come. Negotiating the first treaty has not been about quick wins. It has been about truth-telling, about confronting uncomfortable realities, and about finding a path forward in a space that has never truly existed in this country before. These months have shown us the depth of resilience, the power of unity, and the courage it takes to stay at the table, even when the challenges feel overwhelming. It is a pathway to a future where First Peoples' strength and resilience shine as a guiding light, where the spirit of our people is recognised, and where true prosperity is shared by all who call this land home. The first negotiated statewide treaty brings together First Peoples through the Assembly and the Victorian Government to build a new relationship. It acknowledges our past and is a chance for all Victorians to move forward together. Subject to the passage of the bill through Parliament and royal and cultural assent, the negotiated treaty will be signed by both parties by the end of the year. Policies and programs work best when the people affected by them have a say in how they are delivered. That's why this bill proposes to put decision-making powers into the hands of the First Peoples Assembly. The statewide treaty establishes Ninmar Nyangawara, a new Outcomes and Justice Commission within the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria. This will have the power to hold government and publicly funded bodies accountable to outcomes for First Peoples by holding parliamentary committee-style hearings, asking questions of ministers, conducting system-wide inquiries and running program-level evaluations. The statewide treaty also creates Nyana Yurok Taukana to continue the truth-telling and healing process so everyone across the state can understand our past and share a better future. This foundational and important truth-telling work was started by the mandate of the Yurok Justice Commission and its body of work, and we want to build upon this. This treaty heralds an era where everyone prospers. It's built on respect, truth, and shared responsibility, when First Peoples' culture, knowledge, and authority are central to how we govern, care for country, and make decisions together. Everyone prospers. It's children growing up proud of who they are, walking confidently in two worlds, knowing their language, history, and rights are honoured. It is healthier lands and rivers because decisions are guided by thousands of years of wisdom. It is a future where our country is known not just for its natural beauty, but for the way it nurtures culture, celebrates diversity, and ensures that safety, dignity, and opportunity is shared by all. In this era, our ethos and civic responsibility is defined by how deeply we value one another. It is felt in stronger relationships and in communities thriving. The future belongs to the communities who have held the line, who have fought, who have protested, raised their fists, marched in the streets, and negotiated so that our children can stand taller, speak their languages proudly, and live with the knowledge that their rights are recognised. Treaty is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new one. I'll conclude by reiterating some of what I said in Parliament recently. At the forefront of creating change in Victoria through treaty is creating Galangwal. It is our guide to truth and treaty and the creation of accountability for government. In Gunai Kurnai, Galangwal means tip of the spear. A spear that is crafted with a task in mind, created with care. A spear is not haste alone, nor is it passive. It is endurance. It is measured calmness and to understand the timing to take action. We choose this time, now, to act. We carry the fire of those who came before, and we honour the spirit of our people, a spirit that has endured for over 65,000 years and continues to shine through every generation. This is a spirit built on powerful principles and unshakable values, values that are woven into everyday life, guiding action, shaping identity, and keeping culture strong. Our elders, like Dr. Perkins, have spoken truth to power, demanding justice and recognition long before the world was ready to listen. Our people never waited for permission to lead. We have shaped change. We have stood tall in the face of injustice and the invincible spirit that defines us. It's our connection to country and people that reminds us we are never alone. It's our big love for family, for the ones who come before and the ones yet to be born. It's our fight for justice, not just for ourselves, but for all people. And above all, it's our pride and dignity in who we are. No matter what is thrown at us, we rise. We sing, we speak, we heal, we remember. This country may try to forget, but we remember. As we stand at this turning point in history, let us remember we are the continuation of our ancestors, their fight, their fire, their faith, their dreams. The world's oldest living culture now moves into a new era defined by strength and pride and unity. And to the generations yet to come, may you always walk with your head high, knowing that your people changed a nation. We are still here. We have always been here, and we will always be here. Our story, the story of First Peoples, is Australia's story. And now together, we write the next chapter in the treaty era. Tonight, as we honour Dr. Charles Perkins AO, let us recommit to the spirit he embodied. Let us carry his fire forward, not just in memory, but in action. For the day is coming, and it will come, when the words justice, equality and peace will no longer be aspirations, but realities. And when that day arrives, we will know that the footsteps of Dr. Perkins and all those who walked with him were not in vain, because they showed us that change is possible, that truth is unstoppable, and that the invincible spirit of our people endures, unshaken, unwavering, and stronger with every generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Angara, for sharing your story, your family history, and the critically important work that you're leading in Victoria. Thank you for your deeply moving and powerful oration this evening, and particularly for your focus on the call to walk together for a better future, your focus on leadership, but also for bringing such clarity to the benefits of what a treaty process can bring, not just from an Indigenous perspective, but for all Australians. Your words have challenged us, they've inspired us, and they've reminded us of the strength and vision that continues to shape this nation. So on behalf of the University of Sydney, I want to express our sincere gratitude for the generosity and the leadership that you've shared with us tonight. And it's an honour to have heard your insights and to reflect together on the legacy of Dr. Charles Perkins and the work that lies ahead. As a small token of our appreciation, I'd like to present you with this gift, and thanks for your contribution to this very special 25th anniversary of the Charles Perkins Oration. Okay, I'd like to now invite Madeline back to the stage to join me in bringing tonight to a close. Madeline.
Thank you so much, Sis, for your powerful and heartfelt oration this evening. As Charles Perkins' granddaughter, it's incredibly special to hear your words on this 25th anniversary of the oration. Your vision, leadership, and commitment to the truth and justice speak so strongly to the legacy that my grandfather left and the future we're all working towards. On behalf of my family and the university, thank you for sharing your wisdom and strength with us tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Before we officially close this evening, we invite you to stay and watch a special performance by Paul Kelly, A Bastard Like Me, which was written in honour of Charles Perkins and his extraordinary life. Thank you once again to everyone who joined us tonight for this significant event in the university's calendar, and we invite you to continue these important conversations beyond this evening. Thank you.
I was born in the bush near old Alice Springs, as far as you get from the sea. My mother was a fighter, my daddy was too. He never knew a bastard like me. My brothers and sisters are scattered like the wind, from the desert and the hills to the sea. Much too young, many died, but I have survived. So lucky, a bastard like me. Ooh, so lucky, a bastard like me. I have survived a hell of a ride. Nobody knows a bastard like me. Call me a stray or a dog every day. Call me a mongrel half-breed. Mongrels are strong, so if you take me on, watch out for a bastard like me.
In Australia today, we have one of the greatest social and racial scandals I've ever seen.
Better watch out for a bastard like me. I've fought all the way, and I fight every day. We'll try and stop a bastard like me.
In white terms, you could call me a success story. Big black Commonwealth car, a nice house in a good suburb in Canberra, a university degree. It's just a load of crap. I'm so much of an exception that it's not funny, it's tragic.
I've taken my licks, I've taken my kicks. I am a man of degree. I wear the scars, I earn them so hard. Every day in the lucky country.
We ask her, please, lady, go home.
Every day in the lucky country. I've taken my licks and I've kicked against the pricks. I'll try and stop a bastard like me.